All right, so May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this month I'm proud to partner with the Stamford Youth Mental Health Alliance to help shine a light on the important work being done to support youth mental health in our community. Here in Stamford, a growing network of organizations is working together through this alliance to provide support, resources, and hope for local kids and families. Joining me on the podcast today is Jaime Baumann, Manager of Clinical and Community Partnerships at the Child Guidance Center of Southern Connecticut, and a proud partner of the Alliance to talk about the state of youth mental health today, the challenges families are facing, and the local resources available right here in our community. Jaime, welcome to the Hey Stamford podcast.
Thank you, BJ.
Excited to have you here.
Excited to be here.
This should be a good conversation. I'm really interested to hear more about the Alliance and what you guys are doing at Child Guidance Centers. Hey Stamford is your number one resource for all things local. And if you're tuning into this podcast, I'm guessing the city of Stamford holds a special place in your heart. So if you want to rep the city of Stamford, Hey Stamford, the store is where it's at. We make comfy, stylish hoodies and tees inspired by our city. Perfect for anyone who wants to rep Stamford while keeping it local. Hey Stamford, the store is your go-to for local goods, gifts, apparels, and more. Stop by in person at the Stamford Town Center or shop online at heystamford.com. Your one-stop spot to support local and look great doing it. So, Jaime, let's get right into it. For those that may not know you or what Child Guidance Centers does, can you please introduce yourself and share a little bit more about the organization?
Sure. So the Child Guidance Center of Southern Connecticut has been a staple in the Stamford community for over 50 years.
Wow.
We were founded in the 50s. And it's sort of grown to meet the different community needs, specifically for children's mental health in this area. And currently, our programs include sort of your standard outpatient therapy. That's our child and family therapy program. Through that, we can offer medication management with our psychiatry team. We also have access to comprehensive developmental evaluations. If there's any diagnostic questions around autism or just neurodevelopmental disorders. We are the sort of the owner of Youth Mobile Crisis Intervention Services in the area. We serve the communities of Stamford, Greenwich, Darien, and New Canaan. So if you call 211 in a crisis for a child, our program will be the one to respond within 45 minutes. We also house the Child Advocacy Center in this area. So that's where children go if there's been questions of abuse and they need a forensic interview to sort of coordinate with law enforcement and the prosecutor's office and things like that. And then lastly, we also have a partnership with the Children Learning Centers of Fairfield County, which is the second largest preschool network in the state of Connecticut. And there we provide on-site behavioral health services, which include mental health consultation for teachers and administrators, as well as direct behavioral health therapy for children on site that might be dealing with emotional struggles, trauma responses, or just otherwise maladapting to the preschool environment.
Wow, there's really a lot involved there.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it's been here since the 50s.
Yes. Yeah. It's a long-standing program. And, it definitely has molded and shaped throughout the years. We were acquired in 2020 by the larger Community Health Center network. And so now we're a program of that, and we have access to all of those different resources of the Moses Weitzman health system. And that's really allowed us to sort of branch out and integrate some different programs and opportunities within the Child Guidance Center.
What first drew you to youth mental health?
So originally, I actually got my undergrad in secondary mathematics education, and I was a high school teacher for 4 years. And I love teaching. It has a special place in my heart. And I love mathematics, and I know that's sort of a rarity. But I was drawn to math because it always came naturally to me. I liked it. I thought it was interesting, and I always wanted to be a teacher. It was something I was drawn to. And although I loved teaching, I taught in environments where it was really hard for kids to access learning because there were so many outside challenges that they were struggling with. And you don't get the training as a teacher around behavioral health. Obviously, it's not the field you're going into, but my students were so impacted by trauma and by all of these, basic needs sort of issues. And it sort of felt futile after a while for me to try to force algebra and geometry upon them. And so I was sort of called to make a shift. I wanted to make a different impact. Instead of teaching math, I wanted to go back to school and learn about the underpinnings of behavioral health. What is making it so hard for these kids to learn? What I don't understand, right? So I went back for my master's in social work. And out of that, I knew that I wanted to help kids and families sort of grapple with some of these bigger issues in life. And so I was able to spend a year doing home visiting in the South Bronx and help families sort of overcome some of these really, really traumatic situations, whether that's immigration issues, domestic violence, just inter-family conflicts and things like that. And I gained so much knowledge and experience and humility doing that. And I knew that I wanted to return to an educational-like setting in some way. And I saw this opportunity in Stamford come up. And it was as an early childhood mental health consultant in preschools. And obviously coming from a high school background, I thought, that's going to be different. I know so much about the adolescent brain. I don't know as much about the littles, but it was very, very intriguing to me. So I ended up taking this job, and we secured a SYMHA grant at the Child Guidance Center to do a 5-year mental health consultation program with CLC. And that's sort of where it started. And I have been learning and practicing trauma-informed practices since then. I've been able to work with families. I've been able to work with children, with teachers, with administration, and integrate this behavioral health trauma-informed lens into the school setting and help the adults around the little people learn how to hold them and care for them better. So it's really been the best of both worlds for me.
Wow. That's really impressive that you felt that calling.
Yeah, and I think thinking back to it, there was a moment in my student teaching, and not to go too far back, but there was a moment in my student teaching my senior year of college that sort of sparked me into it, I guess. I had a student, a 9th grader. He was very, very withdrawn, very sort of detached from, not reality, but detached from school life, didn't participate much, very quiet. And I worked really hard to try to build a relationship with him and get him involved and get him excited and figure out, what is his purpose here? Like, what is he striving toward? What is he looking forward to? And it was really hard for him to even have that forward future looking perspective. I finished my student teaching. It's only, half a year. And I was called by the school a couple months later, right before I was about to graduate, and they asked me to come back because he had expressed suicidal ideation, and he refused to talk to anybody. He asked if I could come talk to him. And I didn't have any behavioral health training. I certainly wasn't qualified to do that, but if it was going to help him, I was going to go. So I went and I talked with him and I just listened, and I was able to sort of walk him to, they had a center on site to sort of help with school-based mental health support. And I was able to walk him there and do this warm handoff to professionals that could help him. But it was life-changing in that I realized, I don't necessarily have to have professional mental health training to help a child, but it certainly helps now that I have that, the clinical knowledge to be able to intervene in more targeted ways. But anybody can be that sounding board. Any adult can help a child sort of find the help that they need.
Wow. It's impressive that, as a teacher, you're responsible for this.
Yeah. And I was 20 years old too,
right.
Looking back at it.
That's a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot. It felt like a lot. And it can still feel like a lot.
Right.
And I think that's why the community-based approach is so important, because it's too much for any one person hold or to handle. You need to have a village around you to support.
Right. Now, you've been doing this for a few years now. What are some of the common mental health challenges that you're seeing amongst kids and teens today?
Yeah, I mean, I think my perspective is unique because my mental health experience is really all post-pandemic. So I can't really speak to what kids struggled with before that.
Right.
I mean, I can, but not to the same degree. Now, there is such a rise in anxiety, in depression, but also just environmental factors, right? Like, there's so much more isolation now than there used to be. There is loneliness and, the surgence of social media and how prominent that is in children's lives. And in one way, it can be a creative expression and an outlet, and it can be a form of connection. It should be in its purest form, but it also can create this comparison culture where children are seeing each other and seeing only what they're putting out to the world, right? So they're putting out their best selves on Instagram and on Snapchat, and you naturally just say, wow, they have that and I don't, or they're doing this and I don't, or they have all these friends and I don't. And it can create these issues with self-esteem and self-worth. And that can also, that spirals into not wanting to go to school or not wanting to connect with your family or just losing sort of a sense of purpose in life and not wanting or not feeling able to move forward and have hope for the future.
What would quick recommendations be from that social media and technology perspective? I think that's a loaded question, but.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, early intervention is the most powerful and long-lasting effect that you can have. It's really hard once you haven't established a boundary to put one down. So if you're a 13-year-old, you notice them on the phone, on the iPad, on the computer all day long, and you're like, I think this is a little too much. Let me now limit it to 2 hours a day. They're gonna look at you like, what are you talking about? It's been 5 years that I've been on my phone or been on my tablet all this time. Why now? Why now is it a problem? So I think the best thing to do is start when they're young, is to have structure and rules and boundaries around the use. You have to monitor what they're watching, what they're interacting with, because the World Wide Web is a scary place, and unmonitored, it can be devastating to a young mind. But then, for the older ones, for the teens that have already sort of established their norms and their patterns with technology, have conversations with them about it. What are you interested in? What are you watching? Who are you talking to? And not in an interrogative way, but just truly coming from a place of curiosity. Like, I want to know what interests you. I want to know, what makes you tick. And maybe you want to get involved. Maybe it's, they really like this band. They're watching all their music videos. So maybe it's, let's go watch a concert together. It can be a source of connection, and it can be an area for you to learn more about your child. But it's really about checking in frequently to know, is this appropriate? Are they going down a little bit of a dark hole here? And having a pulse on what it is that they're interacting with.
Are there early warning signs or kind of triggers that you think parents should look out for?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously the more obvious ones. That's, acting out, aggression, swearing at you, disrespect, like all of those things are right in your face, and they're probably a lot easier to identify. And if that's something that you're experiencing with your child, that is a warning sign, and maybe that's something to reach out for help about. But some of the more internalized behaviors are the ones that I'm more concerned about. So this is like isolation, loneliness, quietness, especially if your child was not normally that way. If you have a shy 5-year-old that continues to be shy through their teens, it's a little less concerning than if you used to have a really bubbly, outgoing child or an adventurous child that's now hesitant to do anything. They're attached to your hip and they're scared of seemingly the world. Kiddos that struggle to make friends, kiddos that have a hard time in school. So maybe they're having learning challenges, and that's transpiring into not wanting to go to school. Because why do I want to go somewhere that doesn't make me feel good, right? Doesn't make me feel competent, or I don't have friends at school, or I'm made fun of at school. So again, it's about listening. It's about watching and observing, looking for patterns, and asking your child, do you have any friends at school? Or what is school like for you? Is it fun? Do you enjoy it? Is it hard, but you still want to go? It's really about figuring out what is their source of fear or their source of discomfort coming from.
That's really great insight. Is there something that you wish parents would understand about their child's mental health? Yeah,
I think parents have a tendency to blame themselves. Right. And if they see they see their child struggling, there's this innate response of, I did something wrong, or, they don't have something they need, and I need to fix it because I'm responsible for them. And I get that. I'm a parent. I understand you want to do everything you possibly can for your child. And some things are just beyond your reproach, right? Like there are experts, there are professionals for a reason. And there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in asking for an evaluation, right? To see what are we dealing with here and what are the options. Nobody can make you do anything, right? But people are here to help and here to offer you options and to see, maybe your child needs to be in some sort of social club, a community program, an after school program, or, a church program. There's so many different things that we can offer, and there's things that people just don't know exist, right? So there's no shame in asking for help. Mental health is just like physical health in that everything is confidential, right? I've heard parents think or assume that if their child goes to therapy as a child, it's going to follow them to college, right? It's going to be on their transcript somehow, or, universities aren't going to accept them because they have a diagnosis or a label. And that's just not reality. HIPAA, is there to protect everyone and their health records. So there's no shame in asking for help. I understand there are cultural reservations and your own personal experiences that may impact your willingness or your ease in asking for help or seeking professional treatment. But ultimately, you want what's best for your child. I think 99.9% of parents want what's best for their child. And sometimes it's doing something that might feel a little uncomfortable for you, but ultimately will help them.
Mental health has been spoken about a lot over the last several years, certainly more than it was when I was growing up. Yeah. There's still that stigma out there, but it seems like more and more people are getting a little more comfortable asking for help, even though it is such a big thing to do.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm most proud about of this new generation is their ability to express themselves. And I think maybe social media helps that, right? I think that they're able to say or to know that something's off because they can compare themselves to others.
Right.
And they see this person isn't struggling with these, intense feelings of anxiety every day, or, this lack of motivation to get out of bed, or this lack of, hygiene, self-hygiene. There's just, kids know when something's wrong, but they may not know where to go or who to turn to or how to ask for help. And that's sort of where adults have to step in to help guide them to the right resources.
Right. So if a parent out there realizes today that their child may need some support, what would be a first step for them?
It's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming to find the right person that you are going to feel comfortable with and feel safe with, and that you think has the knowledge and the expertise. And that's what this Mental Health Alliance is for, right? And I shouldn't say the organization, the Alliance, has created this wonderful resource guide. So it pulls together every single, community organization in the area and sort of gives you a brief description of what they do, what they focus on, what they're experts at. And you can choose, you can reach out and you can, make intake appointments, or you can ask questions with people. But even that process, when you're in a crisis or you feel paralyzed with fear about your child's functioning can feel really overwhelming. And I can confidently say that any organization in this alliance, if you reach out to them and they say, I need help and I don't know where to go and I don't know where to turn to. If you reached out to me, sure, child guidance is an option. But if you need, a very specialized referral, I'm going to help find you an organization that can help you with that specialized referral. I just want you to get the help that you need. It doesn't have to be through me. It can be through any one of the organizations here.
One of the things that I like about the Alliance is that it talks about that community-wide approach. What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, it's a combination of discussion and action and training and putting together resource guides. And, we do youth mental health first aid trainings. So that can sort of broaden the catch of adults that know how to respond to children when they're struggling. So I think that's one of the great things that we do. We meet, pretty regularly so that we can discuss gaps in service or how to improve access to service, care coordination, how to spread the word about services. So many families just don't even know that certain organizations exist, and those organizations could be the key to filling their needs.
One of the messages that the Alliance has is, don't carry it alone, we've got you. Why do you think that resonates with families and kids right now?
This generation, this period of time in our society has become so siloed in child rearing. If you look back throughout history, raising a family, raising a child was never supposed to be an individual task, right? You were surrounded by communities that assisted you with all of the different things that are required to help raise a child in like a healthy, stable environment. And now we have so many families that are single parent households that are working multiple jobs that just lack some of the personnel resources to help. And that's where community action agencies can sort of fill in those gaps and help you and help, whether that's with basic needs, whether that's with childcare, whether that's with, enrichment activities or summer camps or all these different things that children benefit from. And you may feel like, I can't afford it or I can't get them to it. Transportation's an issue, or maybe there's a language barrier. There's so many different things that could be keeping families from either knowing about the resources or reaching out for help or seeing if that, is a possibility for them. And I, like I said, I'm a parent. I have a 1-year-old. And if I didn't have my support system around me, I feel like I would drown, right? And so many people are drowning. And I get it. And I want to help. Everyone in this alliance wants to help. Nobody should have to do it alone, let alone children.
You mentioned some of the programs and the resources that are available through this alliance. Can you dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, so there's over 35 local organizations involved in the Stamford Youth Mental Health Alliance. And part of a reaction to the Mental Health Alliance was this VITA partnership, which is sort of a collaboration between some of these clinical and non-clinical organizations. There's a lot of overlap between different, cross-sectional organizations. So some might be related to school, some might be related to mental health, some might be related to after-school programs, daycares, summer camps, or just like Boys and Girls Clubs, some of these community organizations that wear a lot of hats and can serve a lot of different purposes. And, we never discuss specific families because obviously we have our confidentiality. But we talk about patterns. We talk about, how can we as an organization and as a wider community initiative tackle some of these larger issues, like school refusal comes to mind for me. Suicidality comes to mind for me. That's not one person's job to fix. We're going to all have to come together and bring all of our expertise together to bring resources, to develop new work groups, to bring in experts and speakers and look at other towns and what they're doing and implement different initiatives. It takes a lot. And this is a relatively new organization too, right? Like we're 4 years in. So every year there's a new need, there's a new challenge. And we're just trying to work together to figure out how can we make a dent in some of the, societal issues that we're facing.
What's involvement like at the school level?
So we have representatives from the school, namely Teresa Federici, who's the director of the social workers at Stamford Public Schools. She's a big piece of that and has served on our panels and different work groups. They have the sort of boots on the ground lens of what kids are facing in school. And that can look very different than what an outpatient therapist might see or, the children's account. But both of those perspectives are so valuable because, what they see in school and what a therapist might hear about from school can be two different things. And so, and this is where the collaboration comes into play because, we this year worked with her to sort of streamline the process for mobile crisis because schools are one of our major referral sources because fortunately when kids form good relationships at school and that is often who they, express some of these deep, dark thoughts to. And then they'll call mobile crisis and to do an assessment, does this child need hospitalization? Do they need a further psychiatric evaluation or can we stabilize? Can we create safety plans? Can we pull school in and parents in or caregivers in to sort of recognize what this child's dealing with and create a plan of action to help them, stabilize their mental health?
So despite all the challenges and everything happening in youth mental health, what gives you hope about the future?
So specifically in an area like Stamford, there are so many organizations around that are willing to help and that are passionate and devoted to helping. That gives me a lot of hope because this is not an area depleted of resources, but it still can feel like a desert to some families that just don't know where to go, who to turn to, what those resources look like, or are afraid that they might not have the financial means to pay for it. And so many of our organizations work on a sliding scale. They're devoted to, accepting clients regardless of their ability to pay, child guidance included. That's sort of like what we were founded on, right, is to serve this community based on their need, not based on their ability to pay. And like I said, children are becoming better advocates for themselves. They are definitely more willing to talk about mental health and more willing to receive mental health. I think it's sometimes the caregiver generation that's the one that's a little bit more hesitant. So it does give me a lot of hope. There's so many resources that are embedded into schools that never existed when I went to school.
Right.
And that is really, really hopeful to me because if we can, if we have multiple eyes on children at different levels and different environments, we're more likely to catch them and to get them the help they need early on. And that's really key because if a child has been struggling in silence for years, it's a lot harder to get them the help they need because as time goes on, you grow more withdrawn, more introverted, less likely to ask for help, less likely to talk about things. So that's probably the number one thing I'll, publicize to people is it's never too early to ask for help. Your child does not have to have endured a tragedy or a crisis to receive mental health help. You can think about it as being proactive, right? Every single person in their life is going to experience tragedy. Everyone is going to lose a loved one at some point. Everyone is going to feel immense disappointment or failure. And as parents, sometimes we want to shield them from that, right? We just want to pretend like it didn't happen. We want to, turn them the other way. And that's not reality. That's not the best way to go about it. The best way is to help them face it head on and learn how to cope with it in a healthy way.
And is there something that people in the community, everyday people in the community can do to support the youth emotionally?
Yeah, I think that's another thing, like I said, people feel in over their heads or they don't feel equipped. They don't feel like they have the training or the knowledge to be able to speak about mental health. So therefore we don't. But but everyone can be a safe person for a child to talk to. And I mentioned before about the youth mental health aid training. That's available to anyone and everyone, any adult. And it just gives you the basics, right? The basics of understanding, is what this child is saying to me concerning? Does it require some additional attention from a professional? Or if they are in real crisis, what are some responses that you can say that are going to help, that are going to validate, that are going to make them more likely to accept help, as opposed to maybe shut down or not want to talk about it anymore.
Right. Jaime, where can people learn more about the Stamford Youth Mental Health Alliance, and where can they learn more about Child Guidance Centers of Southern Connecticut?
So both organizations have really comprehensive websites with pretty long names. The Stamford Youth Mental Health Alliance is stanfordyouthmentalhealthalliance.org, or you can Google it and it'll probably be one of the first 2 or 3 links. And Child Guidance, or CGC as we call it, I believe the website is childguidanceconnecticut.org. But again, if you just Google Child Guidance Center of Southern Connecticut, we will pop up. Can be a little confusing because there are several child guidance centers throughout Connecticut, and they're not related. But
okay.
Ours is of Southern Connecticut,
Got
serving Stamford, Darien, Greenwich, and New Canaan.
And I'll link to both of those in the comments below here as well. Final question for you, Jaime. If there's one message you hope parents or young people take away from this conversation, what would it be?
One final message. You don't have to know how to help. Other people pull people in that want to help, that are willing to help, that can help, that know how to help. Don't try to bear it alone. It's a lot, right? You're going through your own stuff. Every adult has their own life that they're trying to live and be successful at. And then you have this little person on top of that who's dependent on you. And that can feel overwhelming at times, maybe all the time. So please ask for help. Seek people that you trust and accept the help. It's not a failure. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It is a sign of strength to recognize that you need something and to get that resource.
Jaime, this has been really helpful to have you on this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to link to both organizations down below, and of course, reach out if you have any questions. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.